Life is no bullshit. So the work that we do, the spiritual work that we do has to actually apply to that.
Welcome to Big Energy. I'm your host, Kassi Underwood, here to give you a dose of that good energy and talk with people who do it best. Each week, I bring you the knowledge we need to be the forces of nature we came here to be. Today's episode is an interview of me, one of my beloved, I am obsessed with her, former client / student / there's really no good word for that relationship. It's more like collaborator. Jennifer Wallace interviews me on her podcast, Illuminated with Jennifer Wallace, which you guys should definitely check out when the episode is over, because this woman is, I don't love the word fighter, but she is an overcomer. And I'm so honored to have been interviewed on her podcast and honored that she so generously shared it with us for Big Energy. She kind of hilariously titled the episode, The No Bullshit Approach to Life and Spirituality. And one time somebody said, whenever somebody says that their work is no bullshit, it makes me think it's full of bullshit. So you can be the judge of that today. We have an amazing conversation. We talk about hitting rock bottom with alcoholism, abortion, my journey to becoming meditation advisor at Harvard, money metaphysics, my not-so-secret spiritual practices, of which Jennifer is a true master, and how you can raise your vibration. I hope you guys enjoy the show.
I have an incredibly special guest with me today, Kassi Underwood. Kassi is the first spiritual coach that I ever had. She taught me how to pray, how to identify unwanted, untrue beliefs that were holding me back, and the work that I did with her birthed this podcast. And so I am incredibly grateful to her. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Jennifer, thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. It has been such an honor to work with you. You're such an incredible human being with such an incredible heart and story and mission. And I'm so honored to be here with you today.
Oh, that means so much to me, Kassi. Thank you so much. I am equally as honored, and I have loved working with you. So
let's do it, sister.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, let's start with your no bullshit approach to spirituality. Why don't we start there? Because you did teach me how to pray. You totally reframed that world for me. And that was something that made a huge, huge difference for me.
Yeah, it's like the thing nobody wants to do. Like, it's so sexy to meditate these days and, do the Reiki healings and your healings and all that. And I love all that stuff. But for me, there are some basic pieces that have to be in there in order for spirituality to function in my life to make me happier. Because to me, the purpose of a spiritual practice is happiness. And if we're not getting happiness, then we're not doing it right. Spirituality has to be no bullshit for me because life is no bullshit. I am a recovered alcoholic. I had an abortion when I was 19. Like, all this stuff is difficult. Life is not easy. I've been divorced. And then that's all the hard stuff. But then there's also the stuff that's good, that's hard. Like, going and getting a master's degree or getting married or falling in love again. Like, all those things also require work. Life is no bullshit. So the work that we do, the spiritual work that we do, has to actually apply to that. For me, a big piece of my story was being so fucking broke, literally flat broke and pregnant with my son, married, and really not knowing what I was going to do, because here I was on my second Ivy League degree thinking that I should really have my shit together by then and really should know how to bring in some money. And the only thing that really worked for me, because I tried getting jobs, arranging prestigious opportunities for myself, that was not the source of money. The source of money was my spiritual practice and continues to be my spiritual practice. So all the reality of life, that third dimensional piece, begins with our inner world and that connection with source, with the divine, with God, the universe, whatever name you want to call it. And I just want to clarify, because sometimes people hear the word prayer and they're like, what, they want to run away screaming, or they're like, totally freaked out by that.
Resistant. It can be really resistant for people.
Yeah, understandably. A lot of religions have done a lot of harm to a lot of people, and prayer is typically associated with religion. But it's my belief and experience that prayer does not belong to religion. Prayer belongs to you. So you get to have your own personal connection with whatever you want to call it. And that can be an ongoing relationship. Some of us, when we come to prayer, that relationship has been like totally out of order for, for a long time. It's like you start with a prayer, you're like, hey, how's it going? It's been a really long time. And then you start to develop a deeper relationship. And I know for me, I don't pray for things to happen in my life. I'll still try it just for shits and giggles. And it never, that is not a successful form of prayer for me. I pray to be fit to be of maximum service to other people. I pray that my mind be restored to sanity, that my mind be clear, that my thoughts be lifted to the highest plane, that I be cleared from wrong motives. And then from that place, everything is so much easier. Logic sets in and I'm able to live a really happy life.
Did you grow up with any organized religion or any influence like that in your life?
So one side of the family is like all Baptists, Southern Baptists, and not just Southern Baptists, but like preachers and like people who are like really into it. That was my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family was Episcopalian, which is a very questioning form of Christianity, at least the one that I was raised in. The guy who was supposed to confirm us in the middle of the confirmation year, he was like, you know what, guys, I don't really believe in all this shit anymore, so I'm out. And we just didn't get confirmed. And so, that was okay with me. I was really into that kind of honest experience with God. My mom took me to church every now and then, like kind of Christmas Christian, but I grew up with a very accepting God, like an LGBTQI accepting God, just a God that loves everybody, that wants you to be happy. I went to a church camp where we were watching Star Wars and having 70s dances and kissing on the Rock of Love up, the trees. And I grew up with a very hippie, all loving God, not super attached to religion, like loosely attached to Episcopalianism. But I think that that's why for me, when I first began praying in earnest, which is when I hit rock bottom and had to get sober, that it wasn't really that hard of a, thing to start doing.
Yeah, because I was wondering, how did you know to do that? That was going to be the way?
Oh, I'll tell you how. I didn't know. So I'm 20 years old. I'm drinking every day. I can't stop drinking even when I want to. I thought I had it under control and I knew I was an alcoholic by the time I was 18. Everybody told me you're an alcoholic, but I kind of I really got it that I was, but I didn't want to get sober when I was so young. I wanted to enjoy it until I was in my late 20s at least. But when I was 20, I hit rock bottom and I ended up at a 12-step meeting. I was in Florence, Italy, quote unquote, studying abroad. I hadn't been to any classes. It was a total shit show. I had no money. I'd maxed out all my credit cards. It was terrifying, honestly. And I literally could not quit drinking. I would get all the way to 11 p.m. with the covers up and have to go back out and go get a drink. And so when I got to this meeting, I had no money. I was just planning on staying sober for enough time for my parents to trust me and give me more money. Because of that, I would do anything that they told me to do because I just needed to quit drinking for a couple of weeks. I didn't know how to do that. And so they told me, pray on your knees in the morning and at night. And that is how I started praying. I was like, well, I will literally do anything that these people tell me to do, even if it sounds really dumb. So I went home and I prayed on my knees. After, I think it took me 2 meetings with them. After the second meeting, I never drank again.
Wow.
And that was 16 years ago.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. Yeah. And it does make a huge difference, I find, being on your knees and bowing your head, because sometimes I'll be feeling a little lazy in the morning and just be like, oh, I'll just lay here on my side and cuddle the dog and speak to God. And then I'm like, you're bullshitting yourself right now. Get out of bed and get on the floor.
Totally. It's so true. The knee thing really works for me because it's a posture of humility. I think we have no problem doing these things if we're talking about, at least I think our world, the kind of academic, spiritually inclined people. It's well, I'll be glad to do that for Buddhism or for yoga, but for any other reason, it just sounds very creepy. So, I think that putting it in our own context that works for us, getting on our knees is an amazing practice of just saying life is fucking hard. I need help. And asking for guidance. And also just for me, it helps me remember what I'm doing. So it gives me that intentional posture of prayer. And then I can complete the prayer, get up off my knees, and I've completed the ritual and I can start my day.
Yeah, it's totally changed my life completely.
Same.
Yeah. And so at the time that you were studying in Italy, what school were you in at this point? Were you at Harvard at this point?
No, that was like a long way away. And at that point, I couldn't have imagined in a million gazillion years that I would have ended up at Harvard.
Not just ending up at Harvard, but leading the divination.
I was a meditation advisor. So I was at University of Vermont at the time, which I loved. I'd always planned on studying abroad, but by the time I was getting that plane ticket, it was really an escape from people who wanted to have an intervention on me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so how did your meditation practice develop enough to put you into that position at Harvard?
I mean, that's a long story. Let's see. I didn't start meditating right away after I got sober. I started meditating about my second year in. And what happened there is I just hit another rock bottom around depression and anxiety. Everyone had been suggesting meditation for years. And I finally was in enough pain that I was willing to try meditating. And I just sat down for 1 minute and focused on my breath. That was all I could do. It was just 1 minute of meditation a day. But that was a practice that started, 14 years ago now, and led me to where I am today. So if you're new to meditation, I really recommend just 1 minute a day. That's all it takes. And that's all it takes to develop into something really powerful. So from there, I began to, as one does when you start meditating, you want to explore different ways of meditation. So I explored Buddhism for several years, including when I got to Columbia. I was studying writing, but I would take courses in the religion program. I did solo retreats, silent solo retreats. And then I became a student of A Course in Miracles.
Marianne Williamson.
Well, Marianne Williamson wrote the Cliff's Notes to A Course in Miracles.
Oh, okay.
A Course in Miracles, it's a self-study that came out of, essentially, it's an incredible origin story. It has no author, technically. It was channeled by a professor at Columbia University in the 1960s over a course of, I think it was 7 years. And she and her colleague kind of parsed the material that came out of all these channelings. She herself was an atheist who never practiced the Course in Miracles. And she just felt that it was her duty to let this work come through her. And non-religious, but it's a mind training. It trains your mind from a thought system based on fear to a thought system based on love. So we grow up in this world that's a thought system based on fear. It trains us with a 365-day process with meditations that you read each day to think with love, which is the same thing as abundance. And so I had really just dedicated myself when everybody else was getting shit-faced in their 20s. I honestly just dedicated myself to spiritual practice and applying it to every area of my life, to my relationships, to my job, to my work. I didn't apply it to money until I was in my 30s, but I had really practiced this because I didn't have anything to numb myself from life. And I am so sensitive, as so many of us are. I'm not special in that I have to have some way to work through my emotions and my thoughts, because I have a mind, like so many of us do, that wants to take me out. And so I really had to practice this. So by the time I was in my 30s, people were just asking me for guidance, my friends and stuff like that. And so I got this download when I was finishing up at Columbia. I was really starting to feel like I was supposed to be doing something with all this spirituality. I'd gone to Columbia for writing, but I really was starting to get it felt like a call, but I felt embarrassed using that language because that sounded religious and I'm not religious. And one day I had finished helping a friend with cancer work through her fear. When she released her fear, it hurt less. So that's why we would do this work together. And afterward, I was sitting on a park bench outside of her apartment, and I kind of just got this download, and it was like, you need to be teaching this to people as a real thing. And I was, this is so embarrassing. Please do not ask me to do this. I'm in the literary community. I'm happy to go help people if they want to send me a text message or whatever, and, talk to my friends about this stuff. But I could never, the literary world is so atheistic. I would just lose all my cred. But the universe was very insistent. And I was like, fine, if I ever end up in Massachusetts, I'll apply to Harvard Divinity School. Within 2 months, my then fiance, who would become my husband, who is not my husband anymore, was transferred to Massachusetts for work. I never would have gone if I hadn't been engaged to him and had just made this deal with the universe. I only applied to Harvard and it got in. And the next thing I know, I'm walking through the doors of Harvard starting divinity school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was your family they've seen a totally 360 shift in you. It must be kind of overwhelming for them in a positive way.
Well, so my dad helped me get sober. And it was because I'd seen such a massive change in him that I trusted him.
He got sober?
Yeah, he did a 180. I mean, it was amazing. It was mind blowing. When he first got sober, I would brace myself for ways that he used to react. I remember tensing up all of the muscles in my body. And then he would just be so loving and compassionate. I'd be like, wow. So I knew what doing the work to get sober did. And we all knew that. So that didn't surprise them. I was from one of those weird families that really encouraged me to be a writer. They weren't like, writing's bad, you'll make no money.
You'll never make any money being a writer.
They were like, go be a writer. Please be a writer. My mom was an English teacher and everybody in my family just really respected writers. It was really when I got to Harvard, they were like, what are you doing? They were a little bit like, why do you need to go get this degree? What is this? I don't really know what you're doing right now. It was like, this was not in our plan for you. So it took them a minute, but they've been so supportive ever since then. I had an aunt who unfortunately passed away 7 days before my son was born, totally out of the blue. She died. And she had been so supportive of my work at Harvard and teaching meditation and teaching spirituality. And I really dedicate my career to her. I dedicate everything that I do to her and that support that she gave me.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really, really nice. And so your first book is an abortion memoir.
Yes.
May Cause Love. I think this is important now and so relevant to what women are facing still today and the political climate that we're all in. So tell us a little bit about your memoir and how that came about, because I know that's a big part of you.
Yeah. So when I was 19, I had an abortion. And what was really confusing about the whole thing, I grew up in Kentucky. Either you just didn't talk about it or it was like anti-abortion billboards everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I knew because becoming a mother had been so important to me that when I was pregnant, before I actually had the abortion, I knew that I was going to need support afterward. But the only support I could find was this anti-choice, guilt-ridden support that I didn't want. I didn't want to have to say some of the things that they were assuming that I was thinking about myself. And even if I was thinking those things about myself, I didn't want to have to make that mean that I was anti-choice. So I knew that I would need this and I couldn't find the support anywhere, let alone like a bunch of people to tell me they'd had an abortion. I knew one person in the world who'd had one. It was the scariest thing I'd ever done. I felt like I was walking off a cliff.
You were in Kentucky at the time?
No, I was in Vermont, and it was so liberal in Vermont, but I only knew one person who had an abortion. And I think there was also this attitude of we all have free choice. And the weekend before my abortion, my friends literally took a bus down to Washington to march for women's lives, did a pro-choice march. And it was this weird irony where they were among all these people and had all this solidarity just from the political view around abortion, but I was actually having an abortion and couldn't find any support around it.
It's such a complex situation.
Yeah, it was really complex. And I knew that I wasn't the only person experiencing this. So when I was in my 20s, without the alcohol, I really had to face everything that had happened in my life and everything up to that point. And so I decided to set out on this journey to kind of understand my experience and work through some of the emotions and try to find a space where I wasn't going to be forced into a political slogan or political camp in order to process what had happened. That's what the book is about.
Wow. It's a beautiful book, y'all, too. I really suggest that y'all read it. It's beautiful. And you don't find for women who are out there that need support with abortion, there's not a lot of resources. Like you're saying, like your book is really one of the only books on the shelves of this nature. I think it's also important to note that just because you have had an abortion doesn't mean that you don't want to be a mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
There's a kind of a stigma there. It's probably hard for women.
The majority of people who have abortions are already mothers. That's the statistic. Is it the majority of people who actually have abortions are already moms?
Interesting. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. There's just not a lot of good information out there. And I think that not just in the area of abortion, but so many areas of life right now, it's all so tinged with politics, and politics are so supported by finances and who has the most money. And so then whatever message you're receiving isn't necessarily an honest message. The message that you end up receiving is totally tainted with a political agenda or financial agenda. So it's really hard to feel like you're reading good information. And any woman who reads information that, we all have a really good intuition. So when that information is a little bit full of bullshit, you're going to be able to tell, even if it's from the group that you are with. I am pro-reproductive justice, pro-reproductive rights. And I still felt like I was receiving some information that was not entirely accurate or was omitting some information when I was making my abortion decision about what it would be like afterward.
I feel like we're at a time now in humanity that topics like abortion or any traumas really that we have, it's not so much about hiding them anymore, but it's about bringing them to the surface, talking about them and building community, where I feel like we've been kind of tight-lipped on so much over the past 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that we're able to open up dialogues and talk about a little bit more of the harder issues that women face. Right now, you are opening the door for so many listeners to walk through. You're giving permission to so many ladies out there right now.
Oh.
And that is so beautiful.
Well, you know what's so cool is that anybody's listening who feels like they just got permission, girl, you don't need anybody's permission. You get to just make that choice. You get to choose your own reproductive path. You get to choose to heal from anything that you want to heal. The world is yours.
Yep. Agreed. And so what does living a free life mean to you and look like for you?
That is such a good question, girl. Ooh, okay. So I hate rules. I really don't like being told what to do. And yet, like so many of us, we are programmed for belonging and for community. And that can look like people pleasing and saying yes when we mean no and doing what will make our parents happy because we just want that hit, of acceptance and of love, or doing what will make our friends happy, or putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations because it's what we're supposed to do. So for me, living a free life looks like doing whatever I genuinely want and desire to do that is aligned with God and the universe. And the God that I pray to is a God that loves sex, wants me to be financially abundant, wants me to have a free mind, wants me to have free choices about parenthood, wants me to be my fully expressed self in all ways. My God loves Sequins. My God loves Dolly Parton and Beyonce. I mean, that to me is living a free life, just being able to dance and travel and express yourself fully without feeling forced to bend to what other people think, how we think other people will react. That's not easy. Everything that I teach, everything that I've learned has been about deprogramming everything we're programmed with from ages 0 to 7, when our minds are so susceptible to all sorts of beliefs, to undo all those beliefs so that we can just walk free. And that looks like dealing with whatever's happening in your life right now. That thing is a gift from the universe so that you can be free. No matter how hard it seems right now, whatever is coming for you right now, whether that is a difficult conversation or just feeling inauthentic in your relationship with your partner or something really massive that you're having to face, it's a gift. If you walk through it, if you can pray, just show me the right tools, show me how to be, because this doesn't feel good right now, just that honesty. And then moving through it, I have a very specific way that I teach it, but there are many paths to God. There are many paths to freedom, and you'll find it if you just reach out your hand and ask.
Quick question for you. Are you ready to drop the money baggage, experience the frequency of abundance, and be unavailable for bullshit, aka get that bad bitch energy? I got you covered. Join me for a free 5-day live stream festival May 10th through May 14th. Y'all, we are going to shake off that uptight pandemic vibe and have some fun already. I'll be raising your vibration with 5 days of money metaphysics and full self-expression, all so you can tap into that bad bitch energy. Guys, it's completely and totally free, so go ahead and register at kassiunderwood.com/BBE.
Funny, you're leading me right into the next part where I was going to talk about untrue beliefs, because I think that people pleasing is what comes up from the foundation of the unwanted, untrue beliefs and not sitting in your sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one piece of it. A lot of times what people think of as facts are just beliefs. So whether it's something like, I have to do this thing, I absolutely have to go to this event, or people will hate me. That's just a belief that we have. Or let's say we're in a certain industry. Well, authors don't make any money, so I'll just never make any money. That's just a belief. That's not truth. My book can't do well because X, Y, and Z. That's just bullshit. We just make up these stories so that we can get out of having to take responsibility. I mean, that's really it. Every belief I've ever made up has been a form of self-protection so that I can stay safe and small.
Yeah, a little bit of denial of your true self.
Yeah.
And your expression of divinity.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so simple to deprogram them. It's so simple. Once we can start recognizing our thoughts as beliefs that we're choosing rather than as facts or rather than as truth about who we are and what life is and our industry or our relationship or whatever, we can deprogram them and create an entirely new reality. Because here's the deal. We've talked about this so many times, but our thoughts create our emotions create our vibration, and our vibration creates our third dimension, which is our life. So it's a big feedback loop: thoughts, feelings, vibration, third dimension. And then what we do is we judge the third dimension, thinking that the third dimension happened and that we're reacting to it. But really, we had the thought that created the third dimension.
Yeah, I love that so much. I mean, I just love the breakdown of that, and to know that, I mean, your thoughts are creating your reality. Mm-hmm. And so you can unthink those thoughts and give yourself a totally new reality.
Absolutely. And when we don't want to believe that, because, I talk to people all the time who are like, I don't know. I think I'm just really struggling with this thing because X, Y, and Z. We have to ask ourselves, why do we not want to believe that?
Mm-hmm. And how important is it when you want to also reshape your beliefs, mm-hmm. but also to visualize and use mm-hmm. that sort of imagination and creative part of yourself?
Yeah, visualization is so fun and it really is so powerful. So remember, our thoughts create our feelings. So when you're visualizing something that you desire for your life, whether it's happiness or, most of us just desire a feeling, right? And then we think that some third dimensional thing is going to give us that feeling, like money is going to give us that feeling, or love is going to give us that feeling, or whatever it is. So the way that we can hack that is just imagine yourself in an experience that creates the feeling. Then you're using your thoughts to create a feeling that creates a new vibration and creates a new third dimension. It's not immediate. So what happens is a lot of people give up on it, but don't give up on it. Just every morning, spend a couple of minutes imagining the reality that you desire, feeling the feelings that reality has already transpired for you. It's already here. And you're going to get new inspirations about how to form that reality. Our thoughts also create our actions. So if I think to myself, I'm just using the book example, this book can never do well because X, Y, and Z, that gets me out of doing a lot of stuff. I get to sit on my ass if I just think it's not even going to work. But if I'm like, this book could touch millions of lives, then I not only am I feeling good feelings, sending out a new vibration, but I'm going to get new inspiration about what actions I need to take in my life.
Yeah, when you do some of this belief work and you really start digging into it, you almost see how you lie to yourself. Like, how am I benefiting from this? And a lot of times it's not positive benefits.
Right.
Yeah, because you need to have the tough conversations. It's just an easier way to be when you put yourself forward honestly.
It is so true. It's amazing how much we lie to ourselves, and people get very offended when I talk about this, like in my live events, because I'll get to see people's faces when I'm talking about it at live events. When I talk about the fact that we bullshit ourselves all the time, people are like, not me. Like, I would never lie to myself.
Wheels just start turning. It's just like, wow, I'm totally fucking lying to myself a lot of times.
I love busting myself in a lie to myself. I love it because what's on the other side of that is truth. And truth is, the old saying, the truth will set you free. So once I can really gain in the truth, and the truth is always that we have the power to create whatever life that we want, to create whatever social justice change that we want. Literally, there is nothing that our holiness cannot do on this planet. Mm-hmm. And when we can get into that truth, anything is possible. So it's so fun to bust the lies because the lies create emotional pain. The truth creates freedom and joy.
Yeah. It's so funny. When we started working together, it's crazy that we've been in quarantine and dealing with this like COVID for a year now, but we were working together and we went into quarantine, and every day I would pray and say, oh, I love working from home. And I would express it walking all through the house. I love working from home. I love having a podcast, and I love all these things about my new life. And then when it came time for me to go back to work, I had like a third of the clients. I feel like I honestly just prayed my job away. My clients didn't come back. It was like, okay, well, now what? You better make this happen, what you really, truly believe and desire, because all of your energy has been put there and you've literally just kind of pushed away your old life.
I love it. Like the universe took away your backup plan.
It totally did. It's been a wonderful ride. So
it's amazing what you've created here. It's incredible.
Well, honestly, it really is down to so much of the work that you and I did together. So it's true. I am just really grateful for you for this.
Well, I'm honored, but I have to tell you, Jennifer, that you freaking do the work. There's a million things that people could sign up for, right? But if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the results. And you did the work and you really went after it. I am not surprised that you have this successful, incredible podcasting community. You show up for it.
I love it. And so another practice that I learned from you is a grief practice. Mm-hmm. And that's also been incredibly helpful. I don't think we grieve enough. And for me, it mostly looks like grieving for the old part of myself that held the beliefs that held me back.
Right.
And apologizing to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we live in a grief negative culture. We live in a culture that's very unaccepting of grief and uncomfortable with grief. So quite often, and this is why we don't know how to grieve, because everybody has bottle up grief. So when we begin to grieve in front of somebody else, they're going to say something to smack that grief down. So they're going to say like, oh, but you look so good. Oh, but I'm sure things will get better soon. If you are very versed in grieving, if you're very in touch with your emotions, you might be very comfortable with others feeling their feelings in front of you. But most of us have been trained not to. So we smack it down. So it becomes this feedback loop where all of us not grieving. And that ungrieved grief is dangerous. Some people have ungrieved grief. That's where it will change the course of our lives if we don't grieve it. For me, at least, I reached a point where I had to grieve. There was no choice but to learn how to grieve. And a teacher named Ava Torre Bueno, who was an abortion therapist who had worked with Planned Parenthood for many years, she wrote the book Peace After Abortion. She taught me how to grieve in my 20s. And she taught me a 30-second grief practice. Right now we're all going through this pandemic. So much of life has changed. And then if you're on a personal journey of healing and recovery in any form, you're going to change. You're grieving everything the bullshit thoughts allowed us to do and to get away with in ourselves. Even if we weren't even enjoying it, it still let us get away with some things. So we grieve anytime we make a change, anytime we make a choice. All choice involves grief because when we choose one direction, we're having to let go of another. And then anytime we have a loss. So when are we not grieving? It's a daily practice. This is not like one and done. It's not like 6 months later, we will all be better from life. Life continues to happen.
Yep.
And so it's really important to be updated with our emotions like that.
I think for me too, and I think, you and maybe a lot of other women out there are going to relate to this. As I was growing up and up until probably now, I've always been described as like too sensitive. You're too emotional. You're too sensitive.
Yeah.
Too much. It's too much. And I think the grief practice allowed me to release some of what other people would refer to as too much or too emotional, because I wasn't knee jerking anymore with my reactions. I'd come to peace with so much that was maybe tucked away, buried is really the appropriate word.
I think that is so true, because it's like when we have so many layers of ungrieved grief, we're a raw nerve walking around. Yeah. And if we're sensitive, we really have to grieve it. Some people can get away with compartmentalizing and whatever, like the classic 1950s dad, but that is not us, right? And that is not most of the people on the planet right now. If you're on the planet right now, you are a sensitive person. We all are sensitive. When we have this practice, it gets us up to date. So we do have that space between when something happens and our reaction to it. Yeah. There's not quite a knee jerk. I think that's such a good point.
I don't feel nearly as sensitive, or they're not telling me that anymore anyway. I think I'm still just as sensitive as I always was. I'm just not responding to everything like I used to.
Well, you have tools, then you're using them.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Do you think that we are living like in an overpolarized world right now? I mean, we're living in a time where social justice it's not only on the rise, but it is like, we're here, we're making great changes, but there's a lot of arguing going on. So what's your view on how to handle some of the emotions that are coming up right now? There's a lot of racial stuff coming up right now. Thankfully, we're making some changes and moving forward. But do you think we're just overpolarizing?
We have centuries of systemic oppression that need to be dismantled. That's what we're talking about here. And the Course in Miracles talks about how love brings up everything unlike itself. So the closer we get, the more work that's done. And there has been a lot of work toward racial justice in this country and toward dismantling those systems. The closer we get, the louder the ego gets. And it's the same thing that happens in the psyche. We have a collective psyche, and then we have personal psyches. In the psyche, the closer we get to really letting go of an old belief, the louder that voice of the ego gets, saying, oh no, tries to take you back down. We're seeing that made manifest in groups in the United States. So to me, it's not really a question of, yes, are some of the conversations polarizing? Yes. But love, if you're thinking with love, that's a logical way of thinking. Right? Mm-hmm. And so if we're moving toward creating a community and a planet that's based on love and loving laws and loving principles, that's not about polarization. That's just about moving toward love. The conversations that happen on the way are, of course, going to bring up more ego. And I think that it's our job as people with a spiritual practice to listen to ourselves, to have a really deep education, and to take the responsibility for educating ourselves. I know it's not easy. We live in a busy world where there's always something else we could be doing. And I was very privileged to get to spend a lot of my time doing deep dives into what systems of injustice have looked like across the planet for centuries. But as much as we can, educating ourselves with podcasts, with reading material, people are putting out books all the time that are begging for you to read them, to get educated on what's actually happening, so that when we speak, we're speaking from a place of true knowledge, or at least of what we understand to be the truth, and then to listen with compassion. But love always wins. Our job is to keep our eye on the prize, which is love.
And I think to use the excuse of not having enough time is one of the worst excuses, because there is 24 hours in the day. You do have time.
Yeah, you don't have time to read for 20 minutes, but you do have time to dick around on Instagram for 3 hours. You know, it's like...
And it's such a succubus.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it is. And I know one of your favorite things that gets you kind of excited is money metaphysics.
Yes.
You love teaching and working with money.
I am very passionate about it because it is such a big part of my life. So my earliest memories are around money. I was raised around gambling addiction, severe gambling addiction, workaholism, and scarcity mentality. And most of us were raised around some form of scarcity mentality with money. We're taught that money comes from the outside, that you have to go out and get it and bring it back. But that is not where money comes from. Money comes from our consciousness. There's infinite supply of money, and it comes from our deep understanding that, and our understanding of our value and our contribution in the world. For me, I think that the path of money metaphysics chose me, and my coming to terms with my money was just as hard of a spiritual journey of getting sober. I really compare it to getting sober. It took that much blood, sweat, and tears. It was like opening my closet, the mail closet. Do you have one? Like where you keep all your mail?
No, I'm just laughing because you know that I also struggle with money. So I'm just laughing because I'm like, I'm just laughing.
Yeah, like I had like the closet full of mail that I hadn't opened.
I have this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What forced me into it, I always wanted to be wealthy. I always wanted to be rich. I always wanted to have access to money. I know that's like so taboo to say, but I think
a lot of people aren't honest about that.
Yeah. I think they're like, I don't need it. You know,
or thinking like you said earlier, there's not enough for me.
Yeah, there's not
literally
enough,
being printed off.
or I'm going to be taking away from somebody else if I have money.
Yeah.
And that is simply not true. That is a scarcity mindset. The more I have money, the more I can give money, the more I can hire people, the more I can donate to causes that matter to me and support experts in the field. My Instagram posts about Black Lives Matter can only go so far. My dollars will make the difference for people who have been studying and doing the work on this for decades that I don't know how to do. And so I'm a real big fan of learning how to master money. It's really important to me. I had a massive transformation in my life. I essentially had a spiritual awakening around money where I went from living in a tiny basement apartment in Massachusetts. I was pregnant with my son. I was on my second Ivy League degree. I did not understand why I was still so fucking broke. It was just really a mystery to me. I couldn't get it. I was like, I'm on my second Ivy League degree. I'm in student debt now and I'm so broke. What is happening? I had to little by slowly take responsibility for looking at my finances on a weekly basis in depth, on a daily basis, my accounts, and then slowly start to reconfigure my understanding of myself and my value in the world, get over my fear of what other people thought and start offering based on what God in the universe was telling me to do, not what was going to make me comfortable, offering to serve in ways that I was being guided to serve. And that really changed my life around money. Now I have an amazing relationship with money. I know that whatever I desire is mine, that I feel supported by money in every direction. There's nothing that could happen to me financially that could possibly scare me because I know that money is always here to support me. It comes from within and I have the tools and the work to do that. And that is a massive spiritual awakening for me.
I believe that so much when you say that about it being a spiritual awakening, leaving scarcity and feeling abundant.
Yes.
Must be so liberating.
It is, but it was also day at a time. It didn't get here overnight. I didn't want to take responsibility for the numbers. So taking responsibility for the numbers and then really asking how I could be of maximum service and creating offers to put out there in the world that aligned with how I was being guided and my value and what I had to give.
Wow. She's remarkable, y'all. Listeners out there, if you are feeling called to work with Kassi, please reach out to her. You truly change lives. So tell people where they can find you and what you're working on right now and what's happening in the world of Kassi Underwood.
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I love talking to you. I think you're a fucking rock star.
Well, good, because I hope you come back.
Oh, yeah, I'd be glad to. You can find me on Instagram at Kassi Underwood. It's Kassi Underwood. I'm also on Facebook at Kassi Underwood Author, and in KassiUnderwood.com is my website. My newest way that you can work with me is a 6-month mastermind called Money Metaphysics for Maverick Women. And it is all about how to master your money and become infinitely abundant. We meet twice a month. There's support in between. There's an option to work with me one-on-one in this. And we've already started, but it's ongoing. And there's also an in-person retreat. So it's just a beautiful community. And if you feel called to join, please just send me an email at office@KassiUnderwood.com.
Yeah, you do have a very nice community. You really do. I still am really close with some of the girls that we worked with before.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that the universe pulls together the best. So if you hear this and you're feeling called, come on in.
Yes. And you do some free workshops and webinars and stuff too that are super educational and really inspiring.
Yeah, we'll be doing some of that coming up. So you can join my email list through my website and or follow me on Instagram and get that info.
Thank you so much for sitting here with me today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, I look forward to doing this again.
Yay, me too.
And that's Kassi Underwood, y'all. I hope that you were able to get a glimpse and a taste of the magic that I worked with her over the course of time that we worked together was honestly life-changing. She has methods and practices that will unfold for you, expanding you and really dumping and ditching some of the shit that you just don't need to carry anymore. And even be able to identify some of the shit that's not even yours to carry. Like she was saying, so much of our programming happens between the ages of 0 and 7. And then from there, we're just acting out on those beliefs. And what resonated with me was when I was growing up, I loved to draw and I ended up going to art school eventually, but not for drawing. But I was always told, no, you have to have a real job. Artists don't make money. And we all know that that is just simply not true. But having that belief that wasn't mine living inside of me held me back for so long. And now I get to use my creative expression and really my gift of communication to share this with you. And this is now the form of art that I put forward is my voice. I really hope that you check Kassi out, go over and follow her. She's super active on Instagram, and she really is a great mentor to have on your side. So I'm super, super grateful to her today. And I'm very grateful to you for joining us.
Oh, you guys, how much do you love Jennifer Wallace? I so appreciate her for letting us steal the episode, the no bullshit approach to life and spirituality for this podcast. And I hope that you will now go over and check out her podcast, Illuminated with Jennifer Wallace. Go check it out, you guys. That was another episode of Big Energy with me, your host, Kassi Underwood. Were you into it? Go ahead and click the subscribe button and leave a review. You can also find me online at KassiUnderwood.com. See you next time. And be sure to register for my free 5-day livestream festival, Bad Bitch Energy. Go to KassiUnderwood.com/BBE to get on the list. We'll laugh, we'll bitch, we'll make some money, and in 5 days, you'll feel confident and energized.